everyone, my name is Benjamin Hobb with Eagle Vision Video Productions, and I'm here with Chris Barber and Bern Bueckert. And I just kind of wanted to chat a little bit about how you guys are doing, some of the updates on Chris, you're over there in Ottawa right now going through a court case, and Bern, yours is coming up fairly quick. So I just wanted to kind of give people an update, from the point of the documentary to now the aftermath. What's kind of going on? Chris, do you want to start with that? Like, give me a little bit of a recap of how things have been going for you. Oh, just a second there, Chris. We're just grabbing your audio there.
Sorry, there we go.
We got you now. Yeah.
Wow. As I was saying, it's good to see everybody. It's good to see you too. It's been a while now. As everybody knows, we're out in the middle out of Ottawa right now. We're in the middle of this trial. We are on day 21 today. Originally, it was supposed to be a 16-day trial starting September 5th and ending, I don't remember when it was supposed to end. It was about 3 weeks there. And we're booking into November now. We should have dates as of tonight. We should have dates through the end of November. And it will be probably over 30 days to 40 days before we'll even see it go to the judge. So then she can render a verdict after that. It's been a fair trial. I would like to say the judge is seeing both sides of the equation, and I've never been in a courtroom before, so I can't really say to any other experience other than it's a unique one. It's definitely interesting sitting there every day watching them go through every aspect of your life for the 3 weeks that we were in Ottawa there. So.
How are things with I know Jonathan's running a lot of things back at home there with you, with the business. Tell me a little bit about how that's been going.
So my son Jonathan's 20 years old, and he is at home right now dispatching 4 trucks. He is trucking himself. He's just basically stepped into my shoes. So he's my phone hardly rings anymore for work. Everybody calls him. He's been running around the province pulling air seeders now. So very proud. I got a lot of social media posts from a lot of people all across the prairies that see him on a regular basis and send videos of him. Man, he was 30 feet wide yesterday, 20 feet tall, and 150 feet long, and towing a 110,000-pound Burgo air seeder yesterday. So you can't miss him when you see him. But hats off to him. I mean, this kid, I don't know what I was doing at 20, but it sure as heck wasn't running a business like what he's doing right now. I'm so proud of him. My daughter's with me in Ottawa this time. Jonathan was with us for the protest out here. He came with us for the time. My wife Rael flew out right away. Sierra was at home the entire time. She was going to school at that time, so she asked if she could come out and experience the Ontario life. And she was supposed to be here a week and then fly home, so my wife could fly out. But that's been 2 weeks now, and Sierra's really, really, really loving Ontario. Actually, scarier that she doesn't really want to go home.
That's fair. That's fair. Tell me a little bit about the atmosphere of how it's been feeling inside the courtroom. I know you can't really talk about specifics, but are you able to go into kind of the feeling, any frustrations or jubilation or anything in that regards?
Well, the process is draining, I'd have to say. Today there was a bunch of different motions. What I thought we were going into a cross-examination for one of the PLT officers. Everybody was ready to go. We were ready to go, and then we would have completed with her today. And it was a whole day with motions and disclosure and breaks and extra lunch. And the atmosphere in the courtroom is really, really good. On one side of the courtroom, we have usually the media sits there, and they're doing a pretty good job at showing the story. We're getting to know these people quite well. We've got our people that come and sit behind us in the stands. Most people, it's myself, my daughter, or my wife, whoever's here. Tamara's husband, Dwayne, Tamara. We all sit in the first little row there, side by side, and then our supporters usually sit around the courtroom. And the breaks, we're out in the foyer having conversations and having a good time, getting to know each other. We go outside for our lunch breaks, and there's usually a group of people standing out there. We've got a couple people out there that aren't fans, but you're going to find that anywhere, right? But for the most part, we're getting a lot of people from the city of Ottawa that are coming up to us at the trial and thanking us and showing us support. A lot of people from the downtown area. So anybody that was involved there, anybody that took the time to walk through the protest is usually 100% on our side. They know exactly what happened, which is it's really nice to see there's support all across the country right now. We're very appreciative for that.
Hmm, that is awesome. Um, how have you been doing, like, mentally, as you're going through the details of the case, and there's evidence being brought up, and there's cross examinations and all that kind of stuff. How are you doing, being that this is your first time in court? I mean, I can only imagine. I haven't had that experience myself. So what is that like, first time in court and something of this magnitude?
You know, when you're watching your videos being played up on the big screen there, there's three screens in the courtroom, two out for the public, and then the one that the judge gets to look at. And you hear your voice, you see your mug up on the big screen there, and one of the things that I commonly think is my language was a lot different on social media back before the protest and during the protest, and my audience was primarily truckers. So, my language a little more vulgar. I regret that now. I look at that now and I kind of want to put the word out to anybody out there. Be careful what you say on social media because you never know if it's going to be being used like it is right now. And it's draining. It's mentally draining. I tell you what, Sierra and I go to the point where we go to Capital City Bikers Church on Sundays and on the Thursday service, even though they're a repeat. It's good to just go there and get that spiritual. It's just like a veil kind of coming over you and protecting you, and I think that's what we need more than anything right now. The amount of support we have out there is amazing, but to tell you that it's not mentally draining to sit there all day would be a lie. We're doing it though. It's tough, but
Hmm. So how many times is this? Because we're sitting the 20th of October right now. Everything was supposed to be all said and done by this point. How many times has the case been extended, and what kind of impact has that done to your guys' budget and whatnot? Because you have great lawyers. They're not giving themselves away, but all of this is costing an exorbitant amount of money. So tell me a little bit about how many times this has been extended and what that's done to your guys' budget.
well, this is the third time it's been extended now. Like I said, we should have dates tonight. They were meeting after 4:30 today. The lawyers and the judge were meeting to try and work out details on the extended dates. The Crown still hasn't rested yet, so still have defense. There is a motion that the Crown prosecutors brought called the Carter application, which is anything that I am found guilty for, then would bleed over to Tamara. So Tamara, I'm found guilty of counseling something. Tamara would be automatically be found guilty of that too. So we have to. There's going to be about 2 or 3 days there where the lawyers are going to have to argue that shouldn't take part. So that's going to add another few days of it, and it seems like the delays are nonstop. But the budget's basically gone up 3 times. It's 3 times. We've added 2 weeks now, and we're talking about adding another week and a half to 2 weeks. So yeah, the
Yeah.
wheels of justice.
Yeah, that's got to be a little bit brutal. How can people, support? Because I know your funding comes a little bit from some different locations compared to Tamara, compared to Bern as well. For you specifically, how can people that want to help out? What's one of those avenues?
Well, right now, Bern and I are both we're both being looked after by the Justice Center. Bern has got obviously inside counsel, so a Justice Center lawyer will be representing him. Mine's a little bit different. We've got outside counsel, and we have had since the start. So there is a little bit of a budget, and there's a little bit of a cap on that. So Diane Magus has been representing me quite well. She's a tiger in the courtroom. I'm really impressed with how go-getter she is. She's amazing. You got Lawrence Greenspun that's defending Tamara, and then you have Diane and Marwa is second chair to me, as well as Eric Granger, second chair for Tamara. So Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms has been helping us out with the legal battles, both civil and criminal. So the $400 million lawsuit that Zexi Lee is suing us for right now is being represented by in-house by the JCCF. So keeping those donations coming into the JCCF is good. There's also a trust account with Diane Magus at the law firm there too, that anybody that wishes to donate directly to the lawyers. So there's 2 different ways to donate.
Fantastic. Bern, tell me a little bit about when your court case starts and some of the things that you're preparing for.
At this point, it is just scheduled for December 4th to 7th of this year. Listening to Chris, I'm like, well, I'd be fortunate if that's all it was. But yeah, watching what's going on with Chris and Tamara with a lot of interest. Again, same thing as Chris, first time with anything like this. So you don't know what to expect. You don't know what to prepare for, really. I think Chris alluded to it a little bit. I'm glad I don't have to shoulder it all by myself. We know that there's people that are looking to support us. There's people that are behind us. There's other people that are watching with great interest, and I believe in someone who knows what's going on, big picture. And so it takes a little bit of it off, and I feel so unequipped to even be mentioned in the same breath as Chris, because the magnitude of this case that's up against him and the amount of time he's spending in Ottawa. But you still do get a feeling for what he's going through on the mental side of things, right? So yeah, I don't really know what to prepare for. I don't know, you had way back when, Ben, you gave me a T-shirt that said "The truth loves to be questioned," and that's what I'm hanging my hat on, right? Like, we have nothing to hide. We're proud of what we did. We're proud of the truth. We want the truth to win. And so if it doesn't, it's an indicator of where we are as a country and where our justice system is, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. How pivotal has your guys' family been to this process?
Huge. Family to me is everything. My parents are at home right now on the farm. Yeah, we have horses, we have dogs, we have cats, we have a farm to look after. I spent the 2 week break we had to run home. We just a couple weeks ago we ran home and I got the yard ready for winter. I mean, you don't think about the stuff that you have all fall to get done. I had to do in a matter of a couple weeks, water bowls and pressure washers and garden hoses and all that sort of stuff. So my father is our neighbor, and he is the man that I want to grow up to be too. He comes down and looks after all the animals. He's an amazing man. My mother is at home worried and not sleeping well at night. She's scared and not sure about what her son is going through out east, and you just have to phone and reassure her all the time. And when you're home, you give her a big hug. My wife is right here beside me the entire time. She's been here for the first month of this trial. It's good bonding time. I mean, you come back to the apartment at the end of the court day and you're exhausted, you're mentally drained. Like Bern and I, all through this, we're used to putting in long days. We can put a 16, 18-hour day in and still get up the next morning and you're tired, but you go. But this is a mental game out here, one that I don't think I've ever fought before. And I could tell you, it takes a hell of a toll on you. It takes an extreme toll on you. I would give it anything to get back home and get some grease on these fingers again.
Yeah, no doubt. Bern, how about yourself? I know you had talked a few times about while you were downtown Ottawa, how society and how friends and family stepped in. Have you felt that continue now in kind of the foothills of your court date, more or less?
Yes and no. Chris and Rael came up here and visited some time ago, and it was interesting when they left. Just had kind of a dark afternoon because I felt there goes a brother who knows exactly what this is to a greater degree. But you know what I mean? Like we get busy. Everybody around us gets busy. Everybody has a life to carry on, and you do that, right? We all have demands. We all have payments. We all have whatever, and so nobody else can live your life. I mean, they can try and understand, but like when Chris was up here, I'm like, I haven't known this man that long, but here's a brother who knows exactly what's going on from a mental standpoint. And so when he left, I'm like, well, there goes the last guy who really understands, And that's not to say that people aren't trying. That's not to say people aren't empathetic. That's not to say people don't care. It's just, again, it's first time for both of us. We don't know what we're getting into. You have a strange kinship with people that it's almost like brothers in the trenches. You know what I mean? Like I don't even want to make that analogy because it's not fair. Like, I'm not putting myself on a battlefield. But you felt that in Ottawa. We made some friends there, people on my block who are lifelong friends.
Yeah.
We shared something immense, something huge that has been pivotal in our lives. And now I wish so bad I could just be in Ottawa right now, just supporting Chris and seeing what's going on and getting some insight into what's going to happen when I get there. And yet, like I said, we have our lives to carry on. I've been blessed tremendously to be from a fairly prosperous region, lots of support. I don't need to run the numbers, but I wouldn't be surprised if I was one of the best supported truckers in Ottawa, just because, I did travel a long way. It was 4,000 kilometers and a bit to get there. Kind of caught the imagination of people that were on the same page as we were up here, and we're in the oil field community. A lot of those people would still like to be involved, and I hope we can, you feel it. You do feel supported. You feel like you want to be able to pass it on to people that aren't as fortunate in some way. You mentioned a little bit though, Ben, like going back to family. It started right back from when I was just thinking about going, and my 10-year-old at the time, he's now 12, but my 10-year-old doing the old fist bump, like, yes, finally we're doing something. And that carried me through that time. And my family has been so steadfast through this whole time, even to the point of, do we take this to trial? Do we take our chances? Do we go that way? And there's never been a question. They're just solidly behind it, solidly behind and believe in what we did and haven't wavered. So that gives you helps you sleep at night when you know your family is ready for whatever's coming with this.
Yeah, no doubt.
Joseph Burgot told me one fascinating thing that stuck with me this entire time when we were in Ottawa, and he said to me, speak your truth and stand in your truth. And I believe it's a Gandhi quote, but that's something that Joseph told me that I will probably never forget. And that's exactly what we've been doing since we left Ottawa. We've spoke our truth, and we continue to stand in our truth, and I'm going to keep standing regardless.
No doubt. Yeah, that's super powerful for sure.
Huge.
Is it a little bit of a saving grace watching Chris go through this first before at least giving yourself a bit of a foundation to look forward to?
Man, I don't know. I'm sure Chris can identify this. I'd just love to just get it over with.
Yeah.
And just go back to life. You mentioned that, right? One of the first guys on our block to go through trial was understandably, and I think with the exception of possibly yourself and Tamara, he was the first trucker to be arrested in Ottawa. And he had to go through it, and he was scared to death. When you don't know what's coming, that's almost scarier than having a bit of a picture, seeing these guys survive.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all new. You don't know what to expect. You'd rather be anywhere but there, right? Like Chris would rather be pushing a weed whacker around his yard in Saskatchewan, I'm sure, right?
Shoveling horse manure. Just give me something, please.
Yeah, no doubt. So we're going to open it up to everyone that's watching live. If you have any questions for Chris or for Bern about past, present, and future, there's certain restrictions, obviously, that they can't talk about with the court cases coming up. But feel free to flood the comments with a couple of questions. If you have them, type them in now, and we'll get to those in just a second here. I'll give you guys a little bit of an update on the documentary, where it's at. We've had some fun as we anticipated. We right out of the gate we won a handful of awards, which was really exciting and a little bit unexpected. The first 7 festivals we entered, we were either selected for screening, were in the semifinals, in the finals, or had actually won awards. And then it was like a steel door closed after the 8th festival. It's been a long string of almost 45 festivals in a row now that have all been denials. Not even screens, not even a consideration or anything like that. So that's been interesting. Whether or not that's political or our film just isn't up to the quality that I'm not sure. That's been a unique process. This is the first film we've ever submitted to festivals, so that's been pretty interesting. It's been rewarding and also a little disheartening all at the same time, but that's to be expected. A typical film only makes anywhere from 5 to 7% of festivals that you submit to. So, I mean, we're on track for that. So I can't really be all that upset. Well, I'm not upset at all. We've went far beyond whatever I thought we were going to go. For us, for the film from this point, we still have a handful of festivals that we are still entered into. However, with the track record of the last 40, I think we know where that's going. So we've decided to release online on streaming platforms. One platform with Gary is called thefreedomnetwork.ca. You can go to that website and watch the film there. November 3rd, that is starting, as well as Amazon Prime. We've been told we are approved to go on Amazon Prime. However, our status is still showing pending. So our initial contact was, yes, everything is good to go. We've submitted the film, but it has stayed on pending for almost 2 months now. They have assured us that we're November 3rd, we're good to go, but so it may be only on our website, unacceptabledoc.ca, as well as freedomnetwork.ca. We'll be updating you guys in the coming weeks as that comes about. Updates with DVDs, Blu-rays, and USB sticks that people have pre-ordered. We're on our 3rd manufacturer now, so that has also been a bit of a struggle. Either dropping a particular product that we had already, gotten a sample of, and we were like, okay, let's go with that, and all of a sudden that product is no longer available. So we have found a Canadian manufacturer that is going to do short runs for us, a batch of 200 at a time. We'll bring them into our shop and start shipping those out. So as soon as that first batch arrives, we'll be starting with our very first pre-orders and start sending those out. We're hoping to see them by end of next week, and we'll start shipping those out as well. So we'll keep you guys up to date, send lots of photos and all that kind of stuff. I'll take a look and see if we have any questions there.
Well, I know, speaking on behalf of Chris and myself, like we're just thrilled to see any success that you have from this, knowing how much time and effort you put into this, and really how much you put on the line for it as well. It was with no small measure of risk that you entered into doing this documentary, and you did such a great job with it. We had the privilege of traveling with you in Ontario that one trip, and another leg, and just there's a lot of people rooting for you to do really, really well with this, Ben. You did such a great job on it, and we've been happy to be a part of it.
So one question, thank you, I appreciate that. One question is for you, Bern, is whereabouts were you parked in Ottawa, and kind of describe a little bit of your block there.
We were parked kind of a little bit on an outskirt. It was called, I'm having a complete...
Nicholas.
There you go, Nicholas Street. I've been back in that vicinity, and I've seen pictures of that block without trucks on it, and it just doesn't look right. It looks so empty. But we were on the outskirts. We were a few blocks away from where I guess the bulk of the action was happening, and yet it was a bit of a throughway going into Quebec. And myself, I had that 40-foot sign that said "Mandate Freedom" on one side and "True North Strong and Free" on the other. The other fellow that was at the front of our little block also had big signs on a trailer, and so it was. I think it ended up being kind of strategic. We stayed there because there was a lot of through traffic that was able to see our message and see what we're there for. We had a wonderful time, and it came down to wondering, are they going to forget about us because we're kind of outliers, or are we going to be the first ones they hit when they decide to start rounding us up? And we got the privilege of being the first ones.
Mm-hmm. Genevieve commented that they fought a federal court case that lasted for 7 years and won. Eventually won. And that was actually one of my concerns. Does it feel like they're delaying or adding more witnesses that, and I've been watching a lot of Patriot Smoothies updates at the end of each day. God bless that he's been doing that, and the tweets that have been coming out. And in my opinion, and I know you guys can't necessarily comment on this, but a lot of the witnesses seem very inconsequential. Like it's all about a court case of feelings. Like, oh, I felt threatened. Okay, give me an example of when you were threatened. So, well, I don't have a specific time or exactly what they said. I just felt, it was a lot of feelings. Does it, for you guys, bringing up feelings, does it feel like they're extending this court case for no other reason other than to bleed you dry, not to be so crude, but does it seem like that's they just want to drag it out in order to pull as many of your finances and hoping that eventually you just give up the ghost and be like, no, okay, we're done. I plead guilty.
I don't think that's even an option. I know I'm kind of a stubborn farm boy from Saskatchewan here, but we've never been given a the chance to settle or to plead, I guess. Right now, the whole deal with the citizens of Ottawa, there was 9 witnesses in total that they wanted to call, and our lawyers actually did an admission. So we admit that harm was blah, 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 and so you don't have to put these witnesses on the stand. But the judge, they argued back and forth. The judge actually agreed that they can be on the stand and do their time to testify. And so 7 out of the 9 actually testified, which took a few days there, and you got to hear the stories and the impact statements that should be read, basically after, the verdict is in. But they got their time, and that was all scheduled to take place. It just seems like the wheels of justice it's just slow. It's very slow. It's very, like today, you went in there, you're thinking, you're going to hear this person be cross-examined, and you didn't hear it at all. You heard nothing but arguments and breaks and, a couple hours for lunch. And, it's just a different process than I'm used to. So, and yeah.
Have there, another person commented asking if there's been any talk of dropping charges at all?
None. No, nothing. So I've got 7 indictable offenses on myself right now for charges. Tamara has 6 indictable offenses for charges, as well as she's got the breach charge. Remember, she was rearrested last year and sent back to Ottawa there for another however many days in remand center. So her hearing is coming up on the 30th, I believe, next week. For the breach charge. So there's a chance, if we're sitting in court that day for our criminal trials, there's a chance they might stay, but that's way out of the grounds to talk about right now, hopefully.
Yeah, fair enough. Knowing what both of you know now, and I'm pretty sure I already know the answer to this one, but they asked, would you do it again? Or maybe you legally can't answer that at the particular moment.
Oh, that Chris better not answer that.
So in my curio set at home, I have multiple letters from Canadians across this country. Some of desperation, some that make you tear up just reading them. And a lot of these letters talk about people that were so desperate for somebody to stand up, for somebody to do something, somebody to just say enough. A lot of people, the common theme was, we're not alone, right? And some people were considering taking their own lives. And those trucks fired up, and then we gave people a voice. We gave people something to stand up for. So I read those letters, and that's probably as much of an answer as I probably should give.
That's fair.
Yeah, I've heard people describe it as, I think in a documentary that we've all watched a bunch of times, as being heavy. Like, that's heavy stuff.
Right.
Really, I don't even have to look at that stuff, although we all have those stories and we all have those interactions with people. I only need to look at what it's done for me as an individual. This country is in desperate need of people who are willing to stand up for what they believe in. I've always been a people pleaser. Like that's been really a character flaw, probably more than anything. And this helped me to see that it's just important to stand on your principles. It's important to stand up for what you believe in. Even like put all the other stuff aside, what it's done for me as an individual, how impactful it's been, and how it's helped me to grow as just a citizen of this country, as a father, as a husband, as you know, that in and of itself has made it worth it.
Yeah.
And the rest of it, there's so much more. Like we could talk for hours and hours about the stories, like Chris mentioned, and the different. Yeah, it was I hope it was a once in a lifetime occurrence that we never come to this point again. But man, like talk about transformational and just huge. Like I still have bumpers or stickers on the bumper of my truck. And I feel like an evangelist out there or something sometimes. Like you'll go for a week or something and nobody comments, and then you pull into a site somewhere and somebody's just like, whoa, did you actually go to Ottawa? And they're just excited to talk about it. And I love talking about it because it's like such good memories, such good people. And so just the way it reframed what Canada means to me and how I feel about its people is tremendous. And so when I come up on somebody, you know, I've said that to my wife. I'm like, I should pull these stickers off and give my bumper a nice polish. And she's like, no, those stickers are staying on there for life. And those conversations are worth it. You leave those stickers on and somebody's like, wants to talk to you about it. And it's cool. It's so cool.
The community that we built, remember, right? Like the community that we built, the friendships that we've made. I mean, I can walk into a Walmart for crying out loud, and somebody will be like, you walk by and they realize, you can see it now in them when they walk by you and they're like looking, you're like, is it really him or is it not? And then they'll walk by, but then you'll kind of watch them out of the corner of your eye and they'll turn around and see if they've got the courage to come and actually say, hey. I love it when people do that, by the way, because it's always, you can always tell before you see it. So just say hi.
That it left, I know for a lot of people, when the convoy disbanded and was pushed out or arrested, it left a hole for a lot of people. I mean, the months following was quite difficult for a lot of people, so much so that one of our cinematographers, I haven't really talked about this that much with people, but one of our cinematographers this spring actually committed suicide. It's not. It's guesstimated that that's what happened, but it was an overdose on drugs, and he was tortured because he found his community, and to have that broken apart. Matt Bowe, phenomenal cinematographer. We used a lot of his footage in our documentary as well, along with Danny Crossman. And but yeah, unfortunately, this spring Matt succumbed to some of those demons that he was wrestling with not having that community right there, and that's been a little bit difficult for me to wrestle with. But that was how much joy was brought to people during the convoy, and having that stripped away from him was a little bit too much to bear in the end. Which is
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that's definitely a rough one, and I know a few of his friends over in Ottawa, and he had a very beautiful ceremony and service and whatnot for his funeral. So our hearts go out to his family there.
Sure.
I know you already mentioned or answered this already, Bern, but there was some people coming in late. They're asking when your trial was again.
There's this odd thing that's going on with all this that has to do with birthdays. So anybody that would have watched the documentary know that the day I was arrested was my son's 15th birthday. Mm-hmm. So that was a big part of my story. It was interesting. And then my trial is scheduled over my birthday. So
happy birthday.
It's the 4th to the 7th. My birthday's on the 7th. Let's hope I have something to celebrate on the 7th. We'll see how this goes.
You never know, Bern. I might still be here, so I mean, we don't have conditions against each other. I'm buying a beer.
I will take you up on that.
What was that feeling like rolling across Canada? It was intoxicating, but that feeling of when you finally hit Ottawa, and popped your air brake on the park and shut her down. What was that feeling when you actually stopped rolling? I mean, for you were down on
the Parkway.
The Parkway
yes,
there
John.
when you first parked. But for yourself there, Bern, and Chris as well.
Well, I think it was just a here we go, right? Like we as we're driving, as we're crossing the country, it's what we do every day. I mean, we don't travel in convoy that much. It was challenging in and of itself to do 70 kilometers an hour across the whole the whole country.
Was the parkway like anticlimactic at all because you guys were just outside of the core?
It felt a little bit that way. It's a scenic part of Ottawa. You're right by the river. You're looking at the Parliament buildings, and it felt like, yeah, we were definitely in the wrong spot. Like,
And at that point, what was stopping you guys from getting right down? I've got video footage, and if you go way
Yeah.
back on our Facebook, you'll see some live stuff.
I
we
was
did.
a couple of blocks back from it, but yeah, there's heavy equipment blocking off us moving
Like
any further.
graders and
Yeah,
loaders
graders and loaders, and I think they had some cement barricades moved in by that point. I think they kind of wanted us right there. We were a bit of a tourist attraction. You know, you could come see us if you wanted to, but we're out of the harm's way. We're not bothering anybody except for the cross-country skiers who didn't really seem to respond all that well to our waves and our attempts at conversation. Mm-hmm. They didn't like us intruding on their park. But no, and that's just why we ended up moving. We're like, that's not why we came here. We didn't come here to just be a petting zoo,
Yeah.
you know. And so, but it was a lot of that. I recognized like people like Chris and Tamara and other people that were more central in their organization. I'm like, man, the work's just starting for these guys. Like, we've gotten here, we're gonna park, we're gonna see what happens. Like, it was such no idea, right? Like, we hadn't done anything like this before, so now what? Like, you get there, and now what? And I remember a few people being frustrated because we almost entered radio silence for a day or two. But I know, and I've had the privilege of getting to know Chris and some of the story and some of these other people, and that's when the work started for a lot of people. Like, now the negotiating starts, and now the back and forth starts, and it's just ramping up. Not so for the rest of us who just drove there and parked there, but yeah, it was just.
I remember, Bern, have you ever been to Ottawa before?
No.
No. See, and I've drove by it a few times on the 417 in the big truck, but coming into Wellington that morning on the 29th, I guess it was, with police leading us in there in the pilot trucks and just the people on both sides of the street on the grass, the snow where the grass would have been. It felt like the Winnipeg experience, when we went through Winnipeg, it was just wall-to-wall people, and there was people standing there with Canadian flags, and it was just the whole Wellington street itself, and we made it right to the Superior Court before we basically had to come to a stop. There was nowhere else for us to go, and at that time I didn't realize that the police had shut traffic down at was it Booth? I believe it was Booth and S-Jam there, Sir Johnny McDonald, and didn't allow anybody to follow, myself and a few other trucks in. So it was so busy.
Yeah. Another interesting question that you guys might chuckle at is, how much money have you made off of the convoy?
Wow.
I know there's a lot of people that like to poke you and Tamara, especially that you've run off with all this cash that's in escrow accounts right now. But yeah, so as far as the documentary goes, not a lot of people make a documentary expecting to make money off of it, that's for sure. But I can let everyone know that we had a few comments that were just trying to
entice.
Just that there were opportunists and whatnot. So my wife and I, we totaled up the numbers not too long ago, and it was actually very surprising how much money we've actually put into the documentary. Turned out to be about 140,000 that it was way more than I thought.
Yeah, just adds up. Hey.
It was amazing. We had about 45,000 worth of crowdfunding, which was instrumental. There's no way we could have done it without that. So that was huge. There was a lot of key players that put in fairly large sums into the crowdfunding. So that was a huge blessing for us. And then theater-wise, total, we've with the crowdfunding and with theater runs and with pre-sales of DVDs, we're kind of sitting at about the $70,000 to $80,000 mark as far as revenue goes for both. So, I mean, we've almost gotten 50% back, which is huge. No, but like, in all honesty, like for me, it wasn't about Like, we knew this was
Money.
an investment. No, yeah, it wasn't about the money at all, but to already recoup 50% of our costs is huge for me, when we didn't think we were going to recoup any of it, right? We thought we'd throw it out free online and just call her good. So, I mean, we're super blessed that we have been able to recoup some of the costs. For you guys, have you guys ever totaled up what you're out of pocket for?
Well, I know trucking wise, I mean, probably for the month we were gone there, I lost probably close to 60,000.
Yeah.
You know, fueling trucks up on the way home. We did that. That's what we did. We went there thinking we had the GoFundMe and the Give Send Go and all that sort of stuff, and we didn't. But in the same sense too, I don't know any truckers that I actually went to Ottawa with that went there because of the money. And I know that by the time the government's done with me and the legal bills and all the rest of the stuff, there'd be nothing left but a grease spot financially, and I'm okay with that because we save lives, and no matter what position you are in society, there's always going to be your critics. So, you know, what saddens me is some of the people that we stood with in Ottawa that, you know, you thought you knew better have turned on us and decided to go down a path that has been just ingenuous, not where it should be, and for whatever reasons, whether it be, you know, lack of notoriety or jealousy, that's a big one. I never asked to be in this position, but I'm here, and I represent a lot of people that I stood with in Ottawa, as well as Canadians across this country, and I'll proudly stand here. So if you don't like it, you don't have to stand with me.
I know traveling across with my buddy Andy, who jumped in the truck with me, none of us, I can corroborate what Chris said, like I don't think anybody set out, not anybody that went out in a truck, we're not like, oh, this looks like a good moneymaker. We're, you know, you just felt you had to be there. Like there was a pull to it, and you just felt like you needed to go, and you almost, I mean, I guess you did maybe count the cost, but you almost didn't. Like you just had to go, and yet as we're going across the country, you know, just money just kept, either people dropping off money with my wife, or finding ways to help my family, or just letting me know that, hey, we got this, or saying, hey, I'm going to buy you a tank of fuel when you get back, or just like interesting little ways of doing it. You know, I needed to, when I got back, there was a starting issue with my wife's vehicle, and I brought it into a local shop to get it fixed, and they had gotten scared off by what was happening with GoFundMe, and she's like, you know what, we just want to buy this battery for you. That touches you.
Yeah.
You know, like people finding new ways to help, but just going across the country, it was just, Andy and I we couldn't believe how supportive people were, you know, and we had some great sponsors. I haven't added it all up. It's an almost impossible task, you know. It's you know, it's $10 here, it's $500 there. It's you know, it's just all over the map, and it just keeps going and going day and night. And yet so do your costs, right? Like your whatever it is that you're having to lay out to be on the road. But yeah, just like Chris said, money is such a small part of it. You know, we hope to be standing when we're done and carry on with what we're doing. But if we have to find a new way, like we've been there before, right? Again, like it speaks to who ended up doing this. And truckers have always been somebody who just, you have to find a way to roll with it, right? You have a good contract, you have a good job somewhere, and then the job's done, and now you need to figure out a new way to make a living.
Yeah.
So we're uniquely equipped for where we find ourselves.
We've got amazing customers. Like I couldn't be more blessed than the people that I have, that I work for and that work with me on a regular basis. Some of my big customers at home, they've been with us from the start. They're with us today, even right now. They work directly with Jonathan, and I couldn't be more blessed. There's something about it. There's something in us, and I think, Bern, you could probably agree with this. Something changed inside us as a human being, and all that stuff that you strived for before going to Ottawa, all of a sudden it doesn't matter anymore, does it? Like, the savings account would be gone anyway. We wouldn't be crossing the border if the mandates stayed in place. But just in it for the long haul. It was whatever.
And you find yourself now, I do anyway, much more committed to supporting local businesses and supporting people who you knew had your back. Like the last few years were a bit of a clarifier, right? Like a lot of people that we thought we had everything in the world in common with, and all of a sudden you find out they would actually be pushing me towards whatever, like they don't have my back at all, and then the support comes from unexpected sources sometimes. And you're like, you know what? Like I remember that. I do remember that. I know who you are, and I appreciate who you are. And you see how small businesses and small towns and families have been, I don't know if you want to say under attack, but it's been a tough go for small business for sure. And we see how important that is in our lives and in our communities. And you want to support those people that took the time to support you.
Yeah. Well, before we started on this documentary, we had actually, my wife and I sat our whole family down. We had all my brothers and sisters there and my parents, and said, if we pursue this, like, you know, cancel culture is strong. Said there's a good potential that this goes a different direction and our company becomes unsustainable. And so we were just like, we may call on your guys' assistance if our company folds and, you know, everyone leaves. And we did lose some clients. We lost some of our larger clients. But the amazing thing was for every client that we had lost, we gained 2 in support.
That's awesome.
So it almost became like a refining fire for our clientele, is the ones that were always a pain in the butt, that didn't necessarily, that always had a million and one changes and were never happy. Those clients kind of fell by the wayside, and we gained more that were more than happy to come alongside our company. So we did it. It maybe was a lull in business for 2-3 months, and then after that we had far too much, like more than we could handle. So that's really why we haven't been upset as well making any money back on the documentary. Is we have gained it in other ways, just in support of our business as well. One of the questions here is, will Unacceptable be donating funds to help with court cases? And yes, our doc, as we do have money in the account, we have donated a few times to JCCF for Chris and for Bern. And then as revenue comes in the future, we'll be taking a portion of those proceeds and not just for Chris and Bern, but for others as well that are facing court cases in the future. A percentage of our proceeds will be going to that as well. And Trudy asks, can you still pre-order them? Yes, if you go to unacceptabledoc.ca, there's a pre-order, and essentially as stock comes in is when we'll be shipping them out. As soon as they arrive, we'll be fulfilling those orders as they come in. One of the questions is when are we going to do it again and save this country, because this country is really getting restless.
Can we just get through our criminal trials right now, please? Just like, I know there's been a little bit of a squabble the last little while here when other, you know, convoys or whatever they call them are coming back to Ottawa, and I guess to be honest with you, I really got the chills, because I thought, we're right in the middle of our criminal trials right now. We don't need any distractions. We don't need any law enforcement being overwhelmed, or anything for the judge to look at the news at night and say, oh, what are these people doing? You know, let's get through the criminal trials. And I've said this and I'll say it again. If you want this country to move forward right now, it's time to get involved with your local community. Go become part of the school board. Go become part of the city council. Go be part of your local RM. Please, that's the only way right now to take anything back, is by being locally involved in your community. Be involved with your kids. Know that the library and the school that they have right now is full of books. Is going to nurture them and not, distort or twist them. So it all starts at home.
Yeah. And I think that question in and of itself speaks to what this was, because it was amazing. And a lot of people got caught up in it and loved the feelings, loved the emotion, loved the excitement, loved what was happening. And maybe I'm wrong. I know Chris and I have had conversations about this. I don't think you could recreate this. Like, it was such a groundswell just from like what I touched into before, just people feeling called to be there and go. And if you try and manufacture it again, it's just not going to be the same thing.
That was definitely going to be my comment as well, is how organic this was.
I hate the word organic.
Well,
It feels
fair-
like such
fair enough. It's a
I know.
trigger word for you. But no,
Soccer.
like the support came from everywhere, and places you didn't expect, like the amount of Quebecers that were there, the amount of the East Coasters that were there.
Yeah.
And it was funny because from the same family, you'd have someone 100% full support, and then you have someone so far against it, all within the same family body. So it's hard to recreate that kind of support that we were seeing, and people are. You see a lot of comments is people understand that feeling, and so they want it back. So I understand the desire to do another convoy, but I don't think it's replicatable. Like.
And especially like certain segments of our society, people who it's been a long time since they really felt a part of something, right? Like you touched into that before. There's people who, and I've got a friend who we couldn't get that friend to leave Ottawa, even when, and it was a long trek back, because it was so great to be there. Like she had such a huge family, and she loved being there. Like. So it's normal and it's natural for people to want to recreate that. But I just don't think it can be done.
Yeah.
Because it was organic.
This one's for you, Chris, and I've had this explained to me before, but why are you and Tamara tied together? Why are you lockstep in this court case? Why? Because there was a lot of people involved, and I mean, it was like herding cats. Like it's not really that there was one leader, right? There is from so many different aspects. Why are you guys specifically tied together in this court case?
That is a really, really good question. One that we would have to put to the Crown prosecutors and the people in charge of the judicial system in Ottawa. I honestly don't know why we were charged together. I know that Sierra's just walking around behind me here, obviously. Say hi, Sierra. There she is. I don't know why we were charged together, but Tamara and I were the ones that made that drive across from Alberta to Ottawa together, and we spent a lot of time on our lives. We got to know a lot of Canadians, through the process, and it seems only right that I'm able to stand with her once again in the courtroom. So.
Now, my next question in regards to that is, if there are charges laid, and it's confirmed that there are charges, if she's charged, are you charged then? Like, is it kind of like what's good for the goose is good for the gander kind of thing, that you're both charged regardless of if one is found guilty?
What did you call that thing, Chris? You mentioned that before.
So that's what they call the Carter application. So the Crown has applied for. Yeah. So anything that I'm found guilty for, Tamara will automatically be found guilty. It's going to be a couple days to argue that, and then we'll have to wait for a couple of weeks for a verdict from the judge on that as well. So that's far from over on that one. I mean, there's not a lot. I don't know. The lawyers feel really good about it, but it still has to be legal arguments in the courtroom. So
I know you're looking forward to this, and I can't wait for the day when you and Tamara can sit down together and talk about what you experienced, because I've found like it's been extremely cathartic to be able to sit with those guys I got to know really well in Ottawa and spent 3 weeks together or whatever that time frame was, and then to be cut off, and maybe not everybody knows this, but you guys have had very strict rules and regulations around, you've had to have a lawyer present, right?
Yeah, legal counsel has to be present. So we did have Keith Wilson and Eva Chipiak as our main lawyers for quite some time, and we were able to talk to them. But the closer that we draw through to trial, those lawyers were replaced then with our criminal lawyers from Ottawa. So definitely a different dynamic. It's nice to be able to sit beside Tamara in the courtroom, and our lawyers are right in front of us, so we can have conversations when we need to. We just need to have them kind of to listening. But what's interesting, I find, is having Rael sitting beside me and Dwayne, Tamara's husband, sitting there, and the four of us having a conversation, because you've got Tamara and I were one of the two main faces, I guess. But then you've also got these two spouses that are kind of sitting on the sidelines, and it's interesting to hear their story. And
Mm.
we've built this kind of really good friendship over the last while, sitting in the courtroom, and then through the lawyer meetings and that. They got a story to tell too. Their spouses have been given up to this country and facing this trial. I'm glad that they're both able to be there with us in Ottawa and live the experience again. Definitely a friendship that's going to be there forever. Tamara and I, when our charges are read or our verdict is in, we will be doing some live some podcasts. We will go and say thank you to all the people that have supported us, and definitely talk to the people. We're excited for that. So set the truth straight on a few things that have been said about us in the last while. So
Have you had to be fairly quiet about some of those things? Then obviously, if someone tries to call you out on a particular aspect, you can't really go into specific details in response, can you?
no, no. And the other thing too is you got to worry about, are they worth your time?
Yeah.
I love to troll. I love to go out there and fight. I usually like to do it with the left, and I have my Twitter battles and my Facebook battles. And I've got a few phone calls from other people that we've met throughout this experience, high profile people, and they've said, Chris, why are you lowering yourself? You're punching down is what their excuse was when you're playing with these people. And to me, I've always been there. I always like to fight, but you know what? It's going to scare the hell of a lot of people when Tamara and I are able to sit and talk, together, because we have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
And the people that have been, slamming her, especially, that's what bothers me the most, I think, is these people that attack her when she can't defend herself. So I'll be that guy.
Yeah, because she doesn't have access to any social media to even
No.
respond to any of the accusations that are coming her way. What are the
100%.
specific charges for yourself and for Bern?
So my charges are 7 indictable offenses ranging from mischief, going against a court order, intimidation. So I've got 3 counseling charges on top of that with a second counseling charge, so making this 7 in total.
Okay.
For myself, it's just mischief and mischief obstruct property. To hear the word mischief,
Something your toddler gets up
right?
to.
Like that's what you used to discipline your kids for. It seems like they knocked over something on purpose, and that's mischief.
Yeah. Okay. There's a couple other ones. Is it advantageous for people to like call OPS, call city, write letters, that kind of thing, to the government in regards to the case or anything like that? Is that advantageous, or is that just noise in the wind?
I kind of think it's noise in the wind at this part right now. The charges aren't going to go away. We're here till the end in the trial, so we haven't been charged with treason or overthrowing the government or any of these narratives that the government, the media has tried to put out. We've been charged with mischief and going against the court order and intimidation of a peace officer and that sort of stuff. And you're hearing through the testimony right now that I worked with police officers the entire time. We had public safety was one of our main things. So the more truth that comes out from this trial, it's funny, the legacy media that was really thick there in the first week of trial. And as the truth started coming out, a lot of those people left. There's just a sliver of them now that remain, and maybe that's what happens in a long trial. I'm not sure, but I've got to know a few of the guys pretty good from the legacy media. We kind of razz each other in the lobby quite a bit.
Yeah.
Chris,
doing the
this has struck me quite a few times here as you're going through this trial, and it just angers me that you guys are going through this when. Like, I was also there. I saw what was going on. I saw, it was a powder keg, right? Like, it was a tense situation, right? There's a whole pile of new people in town with a whole bunch of people who didn't know how to handle it, and it could have gone really, really badly. It really could have.
Sure.
And yet, all of my buddies that I got to know well will corroborate this. All we heard from anybody in any sort of leadership role was how imperative it was that it stayed peaceful. I'm like, why don't they thank people like Chris and Tamara for keeping the lid on this thing and for keeping it peaceful? Like, it ended well. It really did, and yet here they are on trial.
Yeah.
And when all we heard from Chris and all we heard from Tamara and from other people that were tasked with trying to keep all these truckers peaceful was keep it peaceful. That's all we heard.
Yeah.
that was
So
a
there was
resounding message.
in Ottawa about a month, maybe a month and a half ago now, a month maybe. There was a drive-by shooting in a wedding reception. Somebody drove by and opened fire, and 2 people were killed and 6 people were injured. And so far, last I heard, there was no leads, no suspects, no nothing like that. But we had 3 homicide investigators in our courtroom for 2 full weeks.
Homicide detectives for the charges that Chris is looking at. It doesn't make sense to me.
No. Another question that we had come in is, would you ever sell Big Red? I know you've wrapped over 3 million miles on that thing, or is it kilometers?
So kilometers. So you know
Okay.
what, Ben? That might be your next documentary is the life of Big Red. You know, I bought that truck in November 28th of 2003. Jonathan was 7 months old. I drove the truck home. I paid $139,000 Canadian for it. I almost went broke multiple times trying to pay for that loan over the course of the 5 years that I had, to pay for it. And I fell in love with that truck. And she is considered my baby. It's right now sitting at home in the corner of the garage. And I told my son, under no circumstances did it sit outside at all. It doesn't go in the storage shed. It goes in the shop. So I know that it's safe from the mice. And no, I'll never sell that. If anything, I'll be buried in that truck.
What if I was to buy it and then repaint that engine yellow then? No?
Well, sometimes I wonder about that. I should probably have painted that one yellow. Viper red didn't look good on a cat, unfortunately.
Well, I think we managed to make it through most of the comments for questions and whatnot. There's a couple of people asking like what lives were saved, and I've heard these stories countless times of people that were in a dark spot. Can you talk about specifically something either of you heard directly from that person that, because I know you talked about a little bit in the documentary yourself there, Bern. But Chris, do you want to talk about any specific instances? Because it's a story I heard time and time again. Everyone I talked to said they heard a story that was very similar because...
So I heard one just recently.
Okay.
As you know, we've done unacceptable documentary previews all across this country. And the one preview that I was able to do by myself, you guys were busy with some other stuff, but Hope, British Columbia. So on my way out to Victoria for the We Unify conference last year, I stopped in Salmon Arm and some people wanted to do a little town hall. So at that town hall, a lady read a letter out loud that another lady had wrote about about being desperate and her marriage was on the rocks and suicide. It was desperate. She was ready to end it. And she wrote this letter and she has social anxiety. She didn't want to be the one that brought that letter to me, but she wanted her friend to bring it to me and read it to me in front of the crowd. And I met that lady's husband, and he was being a part of the documentary premiere in Hope. And so I convinced him. I said, you know what, could you please, I know your wife suffers from anxiety, but the letter that she wrote is so inspiring and so emotional, and so I couldn't. I had a hard time keeping it down emotionally. She came to the premiere in Hope, and there's just one hug, and I think I had everything in my power to not cry the way that she was crying in the embrace. Just the raw emotion, and then for you to read that letter and feel the feelings, and then actually see her and give her a hug and know that she's alive because of something that we all kind of did and came together to do. So, yeah, the people on the left, they like to try and throw that thing out there. What freedoms have you lost? And well, you can count a lot. And if you don't see it, you're obviously lost yourselves.
That kind of happened right as we're realizing this is going to be a big thing. As Andy and I had driven through the night and caught up with the convoy in Lloydminster and then into North Battleford. And in North Battleford was one of the first of those instances, and just a lady in just in absolute tears, and she didn't delve into a story that talked about wanting to end it, but just we heard it so many times, like probably the word you heard more often than any other word was hope, right? And if you've ever been in a hopeless spot, like that's a dark place, and so many people had hope reintroduced into their lives, like when we've got hope and we've got joy, then our families do better and communities do better, and our friendships do better. And just so even on a little bit lighter scale, just the people that were re-energized, because it was a tough time for this country. It really was.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Well, you guys haven't really seen each other since this summer. You guys have any questions for each other in regards to some of the things coming up?
Man, I'm paving the way here for you, Bern. So, kind of, if you got anything that concerns you or any questions about what it's like, man, reach out to me and just ask. I can tell you one thing. When we testified at the POEC last November, I was scared estless. There was something about this where I wasn't as scared. I think the POEC, there was a world platform that was watching. You had all the media there. You had, you're sitting on the stand yourself, and it kind of made me a little bit softer for this process, I guess. So
I do appreciate you paving the way. I feel pretty fortunate to be where I'm at, being able to watch some other people go through.
Yeah, that's
this.
That's definitely not a light thing. That's for sure. It's we're all, and I mean, some of the cases have come before courts already. A lot of them have pled, taken a plea deal. I know Pat King's court case is coming up here, right?
Yep.
Or has it started yet? No.
No, it hasn't. No, he started the
Is it-
pre-trial, I guess. So
Yes.
November.
Yeah,
And some of these cases are still, quite a ways away, aren't they? Like Jaba's case,
Next
Jaba's
year.
back to next year, into
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
year. My buddy Scott is into 2024.
Harold Yonkers is now September of 2024 as well too. There will be a fundraiser. Again, plug this one up. November or October 28th, we're going to drive down to Niagara to Yonkers Trucking's building for a breakfast.
Yeah.
Tom Marazzo is going to sign some books there. He's got the new book out called what's it called? The People's Emergency Act. Tom Marazzo,
I
an
just
amazing
got
guy.
it in the mail, but 2 days ago just started.
Did you?
Yeah.
Good.
I think something that people do need to recognize. I would have never said it would carry such a mental toll on somebody having this thing that's out of your control. I think that's the toughest thing, right? Like we're used to
Well, you guys are both entrepreneurs. You're used to not
solving
wanting
issues,
to,
right?
Yeah,
Solving
you're
problems.
in
And
control
here,
for the
you
most
just
part.
don't have that. You don't have that option.
Yeah.
And so it's just completely out of your control. It's hanging up there, and it does carry a toll. I do remember, Chris hides it pretty well. Every once in a while you see a glimpse of it, but I just remember when you guys came up to visit and your wife just looked done, and
Yeah.
just needed a break. And I mean, Fort St. John's a great spot for a break, like out into the middle
We had
of
an amazing
nowhere,
time.
and yeah, we had a great time.
Yep.
There is a mental toll, and we got to find a way through it. And we find our way through it by doing stuff like this, by keeping community, by keeping friendships.
Yep.
Like there's some friendships that had no idea were on the horizon 2 years ago. Now I know the most famous trucker in Canada, and I call him a friend.
Yeah.
Very much so. But it's mutual too, buddy. And I still don't think I did anything more than what you did in Ottawa. We were all there for a purpose, and like I said too, I don't think there's anybody that grew more, mentally and spiritual probably it was me. I grew more than I think anybody in the whole experience. So and that's a huge one.
Well, I appreciate you all coming on this podcast and giving us a little bit of an update of where you guys are at. Hopefully we get a chance to do this again and with some good news towards the end of your trial there, Chris, and with yours coming up here, Bern.
I think it's good to note too that we are far from isolated instances. There are still, I don't know the numbers. Initially it was 130 some people that had faced charges in Ottawa. I think that number is somewhere in there. So there's still a lot of people that are facing similar things, dealing with the same things. So if you're interested at all, find who you can support, find ways to.
Is that list public at all?
That's a great question. I don't know where you would find that.
I heard we were about 170, but I'm not sure on that. And there's a lot of people out there that are helping out. So Justice Center is one of the primary ones. Democracy Fund is the other one. And there's other people out there too. So there's always ways, we appreciate the support. We appreciate the prayers.
I
It
know
means
there's a
everything. I can tell you. Go ahead, Ben.
no, I was going to say there's a lot of people that aren't part of those funds either. I know Chabavici as well. He's self-funding.
Right. Yeah.
But the
Pat King.
JCCF and Pat King as well is also self-funding
Yeah.
as well. So,
Yeah.
if I get a chance to find that, like a list of everybody that's charged, I'll post it on our page. If anyone wants to support someone specifically, individually, then they can reach out that way. If not, JCCF is a great way to support Chris and Bern here as well. Democracy for Tamara and a few others that are under the Democracy Fund. I'll post links to those in the comments coming up here. But again, I appreciate you both coming on here and giving us a bit of an update. Our thoughts and prayers are with you both as Chris, you go into the final of your battle coming up, and Bern, as you start
hope.
yours. Yeah, here's hoping that it doesn't blow into next year, but that would be a little bit brutal for sure. But yeah, just so people understand the magnitude of support that is required, do you have like a dollar figure as far as where your legal fees are at this particular point, and where what the total amount, if it doesn't extend anymore, where it'll be?
Well, I mean, full disclosure, the GCCF, we need people to donate. They have, roughly supported about anywhere from $35,000 to $50,000 of my legal defense. The bill was then $70,000, so we did a little fundraiser around home. We raised that fairly quickly. Now we're looking at 120 to 150. So we've been selling some merchandise, on the website. We have a website, and Big Red, Jerome Walder from Regina did a cartoon version of Big Red. And my friend Kim Cunningham has put that up on a website, and they've made T-shirts and stickers and all that. Big Red Merch is the website for that, and anything goes towards legal. So we've been able to try and raise our own money for the extra cost. I mean, look at the logistics in driving out to Ottawa. We chose to drive, so we had our vehicle, and I love to drive for some reason. I don't like flying as much as I love driving. So this apartment that we're in right now, we've had to move a couple times just because, getting long-term rentals and that's expensive. It's cheaper than a hotel, but it's still expensive. And then you have the piece out here, and then your meals and your travel, and it's a brutal cost.
Yeah.
It is what it is, but people have been very fortunate and very blessed.
Just to break it down into a much smaller component, so a 4-day trial like my own, I've had a quote which is at a discounted rate. Like, we have some tremendous people working as lawyers who are discounting rates because they believe in the cause and they want to represent and they want to be a help. So at a discounted rate, we're still looking at $20,000 to $30,000 for a 4-day trial. So now expand that into what Chris is looking at and Tamara's looking at. These cases that drag on. Like, where is the end of this thing?
Hopefully soon.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But then the crown should rest in the next week, we're hoping, and then it gets into defense, and then all the motions and all the rest of the stuff. So, I mean, we're 3/4 of the way through the trial, I guess, is what we can consider.
So I had brought up that there's so many cases. I kind of look at JCCF and their situation a little bit like an insurance company in a tornado or whatever, right? Like, there's funds, and then all of a sudden there's a huge call for those services, and there's just not enough in the coffers for everything, and they're running short. And so anything that I can do for my own trial, and I've mentioned that I'm from we're from a pretty affluent area, and people can be involved. Anything I can do to
That takes the burden
ease
off.
the burden
Yeah.
and let them spread the money out to somebody who maybe doesn't have the same backing,
Yeah.
like, because there's a lot of other people that have these legal obligations, and I don't want anybody to be put in a spot where they run the risk, a very real risk of going bankrupt because of standing for truth.
Well, and a lot of the plea deals that have happened are because people can't afford.
Which, is that justice? That doesn't feel like justice to me.
Well, no, you don't have your day in court because you have no other option at that point. So, again, encourage everybody to be able to donate to these funds that help with the legal fees coming up. Sorry, Chris, you were going to say something there?
I was just gonna say there's two different aspects of this too. Remember, like the JCCF is covering us for the $400 million lawsuit. Zexi Lee, Citizens of Ottawa. I think there's 4 plaintiffs right now suing Tamara, myself. There's a whole bunch of people on that list. I don't know the number of people precise, but there's a lot of the main people within Ottawa are listed as people that are being sued right now. So the JCCF has stepped up with that. They supported us right from day one. So we'll support them.
Well, again, I appreciate all of you guys coming in, talking about the updates and everything, and yeah, make sure you hop online if you get a chance to support these two and everybody else that is being represented by JCCF or the Democracy Fund. Pre-order the disc now. We're shipping as soon as they land, and we'll have updates as soon as we get a box of discs sitting in our office. That'll be a happy day for me. But appreciate all your guys' time. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for asking questions. I wish you all a fantastic night and a great weekend. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.